Now, another topic in your economic botany is ethnobotany, just elementary knowledge of ethnobotany. Now, before telling you in details, I just like to discuss to you what basically ethnobotany is. You all know that there are tribals in our country. So, whatever plants these tribals are using for their benefit, how they are using it for medicinal purposes, for eating purposes, and how they are making their lives through this, that is the interaction of these tribals with the plants around them is basically known as ethnobotany. Now, first of all, let me tell you what is ethnobotany. What is ethnobotany and why does it matter? Ethno means ethnic, refers to people, culture, a culture's collective body of beliefs, aesthetics, language, knowledge and practice. That is the types of culture that people are having over there. Then what do they believe, what is their aesthetic sense over there, language, the knowledge and what they practice, they means the tribals. And botany, you all know it is a study of plants from the tiniest of ferns to the blade of grass to the tallest of the old trees. Botany includes all the wild plants and the domesticated species. Domesticated species means the species that we grow or which we are growing for our edible purposes, for our eating purposes. Domesticates are species that we humans have selected from time to time, like rice, wheat, barley, maize from the wild plant species, then tanned and trained to optimal produce for us, like the food, fibers, medicines, material and more. The domesticated species are both the subject and object of agriculture. Now, ethnobotanical knowledge, what does it deal with? Ethnobotanical knowledge encompasses both wild and domesticated species and is rooted in observation, relationship, needs and traditional ways of knowing. Such a knowledge evolves over time and is therefore always changing and adding new discoveries, ingenuity and methods. The impact of modern human society on traditional cultures and natural habitats have caused huge losses of individual species and profoundly disrupted communities of species, that is the plant, the animal, the fungi and the entire microflora. Displaced or dispersed people who may have passed along hundreds of generations of observations and customs via oral tradition lose their languages, the names of things and their place in the web of relationship. Sometimes new relationships develop as people migrate and this generates new or modified ethnobotanical language. Or we can see it say in a more simpler form that as the tribals move from one place to the other, they are carrying the knowledge of the plants and various atmospheric things which are affecting them and carrying it from one place to another. That is, they are having the ethnobotanical knowledge of one place and these tribals then they shift to some other place. There again they are having a deep knowledge of all the plants and everything which is available over there. What is the ethnobotanical lore? At botanical dimensions, we particularly treasure those threads of fabric of knowledge that carry an awareness of how the humans are woven into nature, or making it very simple, how we human beings interact with the nature. We live in the nature as nature gives us everything. So that is called as woving of human beings with nature. This knowledge is apparent in the worldview of people which arises as beliefs, stories, myths, instructions, songs, art forms, rituals, recipes and the practices. The Lord has for millennia informed the young people of these cultures is how to be human in a natural world, or how to be human and live with nature, that is living your life with nature and not as separate identities. Lore comes from the same root word as learn. It includes both knowledge and know-how passed down from our ancestors. Which tools does an ethnobotanist use? Or rather we can say, what are those reasons, or how do we study ethnobotany? Ethnobotany is an integrative, multidisciplinary field of learning. Like one particular subject is not ethnobotany. You have to include so many other things. So, the tools of ethnobotanical investigations are many. Starting with, we are having botany, mycology, that is the study of fungi, taxonomy, that is ways of categorizing, anthropology, ethnography, archaeology, comparative folklore, religious studies, medicine, chemistry, pharmacology, that is uses and effects of chemicals in plants, and more. So, all these topics that I am mentioning will combine together to give a comprehensive effect, and that is ethnobotany. Some of the psychoactive species and their lore carry us deep into the realms of rituals, mythology, and cosmology. Sometimes in ethnobotanical inquiry, we call upon ancient history or colonial socio-economic histories, or even examine the roots of our modern social movements. Field ethnobotany is the observation of human-plant relationship in places where it is visible and may be either experienced and or documented in stories and images. Ethnobiology. Now there are a number of terminologies attached to ethnobotany. Ethnobiology is the study of relationship between people, the life forms surrounding them, and the environment in which they live, in past or in present. Ethnobotany is included within the greater category of ethnobiology. That is the relationship between people and the various types of things which they interact and they stay in. There is another term which comes across is ethnomycology, is the study of folk knowledge. Folk means all the tribals. Folk knowledge of mushrooms and other fungi. We know that many of the tribals, they eat a large number of mushroom species, which we are not aware, but they are eating. They are using many plants for medicinal purposes, which we in urban areas are not using them, or we have less knowledge of it. Ethnomycology is often subsumed under ethnobotany, as mushrooms were long believed to be plants, which they are not. Now, ethnoscience is the study of various ways the world is perceived and categorized in different cultures. Ethnoscience regards the operational concepts in an indigenous knowledge system and is sometimes called the folk science. Folk classification and naming systems are also called as folk taxonomy. Ethnomedicine is the study of traditional medicines, whether written as in Ayurveda or traditional Chinese medicine, or remembered and transmitted via oral traditions such as in the much Native American, Latin American, or in Euro-American herbal medicine. Medical anthropology studies contemporary ethnomedicine, which includes the concept of what is illness and how healing occurs. Ethnopharmacology. Now again a new term. Ethnopharmacology is the study of the uses, effects and modes of action of naturally occurring drug compounds. This is a key field that often explains the effectiveness of herbal medicine, the stimulants, analgesics, inebriants or psychoactive species. Both ethnomedicine and ethnopharmacology overlap with ethnobotany. Now, what is ethnomuseology? It is the study of music of different cultures and musical instruments they make and use, which are often made of plant material. Ethnomuseology may include the study of dance as well. We have seen the tribals using drums, then sometimes they are using the dried fruit shells. They are using it as a musical instrument which we do not use, but the tribals are using for their entertainment purposes. Ethnoecology refers to a paradigm that is gaining ground in the early 21st century, understanding and documenting how people perceive and manage the ecosystems they inhabit. Now, what is the importance of this knowledge of ethnobotany, which is pretty new, not very new, but still it has come down in the syllabus as ethnobotany. So, what is the importance, or rather why should we study ethnobotany? Ethnobotanical knowledge is very ancient. It provides information regarding the traditional use of plant wealth which can be utilized in integrated tribal development. The ethnobotanical studies throw light on certain unknown useful plants and new uses of many known plants which can be exploited for developing new sources for some plant products and agro-based industries such as the food processing, fibers and floss, cordage and basketry, extraction of edible and non-edible oils, gums, resin, tannin, dye extraction for the upliftment of tribal communities. The tribals depend mostly on forest flora for meeting their day-to-day needs and primary health care. Tribals do not come in the city and stay, but they stay in the forest and passing their lives from hundreds of years in this forest itself. They collect and utilize many wild plants for food, medicine, fibers, oils, gums, tannins and dyes from their ambient vegetation of their localities in which they are staying. The agricultural practices are not technologically advanced, and most of the tribal groups in northeast part of India resort to shifting cultivation, which is widely known as the jhum cultivation. Now, a little knowledge to you all about the jhum cultivation is that these tribals, they are cultivating rice, pulses, etc. in one particular area. So, as long as that top soil is fertile, they are cultivating and getting their food from there. But the moment that land becomes infertile or the fertility of the soil is lost, or due to rains the top soil cover is removed from that place, so they shift from that particular place to another particular place, and such type of cultivation practiced by the tribals is known as the jhum cultivation. They are community land, clan land and individual land, and the individual users of land have the right of possessing the inherited land. The jhuming or shifting cultivation involves felling of forest trees, clearing of shrubs and undergrowth in the limited area, and turning of soil for the sowing of the crops. The tribal communities utilize ethnomedicinal plants for treatment of diseases and disorders like diarrhea, dysentery, fever, headache, skin diseases, boils and blisters, rheumatism and gout, piles, jaundice, ophthalmic diseases, toothache, bone fracture, snake bite, helminthic or worm infection, cuts and wounds, cough, cold, asthma, leprosy, etc. By and large, a large group of diseases has been taken into account. The ethnomedicinal data will serve as a useful source of information for the chemist, pharmacologist and practitioners of herbal medicine for detection and isolation of bioactive compounds used in modern medicines. Ethnobotany and conservation of natural resources. Now, this point is very important, that when we are dealing with ethnobotany, how these tribals are also conserving our natural resources. Basically, they are these tribals who really know how to conserve our natural resources. So, this becomes important for us to know ethnobotany and the conservation of the natural resources means all the plants which we are finding in the forest and in the wild. So, ethnobotany has relevance with natural resources which gives us raw materials for agroforestry. This study also helps in revealing numerous germplasm stocks of cultivated plants and vegetables. The tribals living in interior forests cultivate numerous vegetable crops. When it comes down to the urban part, to the city part, only few of those vegetables we are using, but the tribals, they are using a huge amount of vegetable crops. Those crops are in cultivation for generations and thus they represent distinct genetic stocks adapted to local conditions. Some examples of such crops are Piper pipiloides, which is used as a condiment means masala, in the Khasi hills. Then we have Parkia roxburghii, which is grown in the country yards for fruit, vegetables in northeastern states of India. Mahogania vestitata, a tuber crop of Khasiya Jaintia hills. Then Hodgsonia, a cucurbit which is grown by the Mizo tribals for oil seeds and vegetables. Now some of the plants of ethnobotanical importance. The tribals and natural populations living in the different parts of India use plant species of forest floras for food, fodder, fibers, house building, fuels, medicines, beverages, oils, gums, resins, dyes, basketry, timber and woodworks, musical instruments, fish poisons, religious ceremonies, narcotics, etc. For all these purposes, they are using the different part of plant species. About 5,000 plant species have been recorded so far, which are used by these tribal communities and aboriginal communities in different states. Some of the plants are used for particular purposes in more than one state, while others plants are found in that particular state only. Now the ethnic plant wealth may be divided into the following groups on the basis of their uses. The wild edible plants, that is the food plants, the ethno-medicinal plants, fiber and floss yielding plants, then there is the oil yielding plants, then we have the dye yielding plants, the gum and resin yielding plants, ethnotoxic and fish poison plants, timber and woodwork, tannin and the yielding plants. So this is a list and we can always add the name of different type of plants which you will find in the books of economic botany. There they are mentioning a chapter on ethnobotany as well. So if you want to have some more knowledge, you can always add it from those books of economic botany.